Hi, Alice. Can you hear us, Alice? I have everybody unmuted because I would like you guys to participate in this class. And we have Vinny joining us. So that's good. I'm excited. We have 4 people on. I have everybody unmuted right now because this is going to be an interacting class. And everybody's at different phases. So Tim, he still has to pass the test to get his transcripts. Shay, you have your transcripts, right?
Yes.
And Vinny, were you able to get a hold of Alan Cowles and by email? Did they respond to you today?
I texted Dave and I sent him my transcript for that test like 2 nights ago, and he said he was going to grade it and get it to me for my transcript.
Oh, okay.
I took it.
Okay, so you still have to get Dave to grade your test and then get it to Alan Cowles to get your transcript back.
Yeah.
When they send the transcripts, they will send you a packet, and that packet will tell you what to do and how to sign up for the state test. And it has the instructions, because what you have to do is sign up for a site called PSA. Is it PSA or PSI?
PSI.
PSI. And you have to register. You have to send them some information. You can do it, I think, via email or regular mail. I would do it email. And I think you have to give them a credit card, and then they email you back and they tell you, okay, you can schedule your test. Then you go on that same website and you schedule the test. So that's kind of the steps. You got to get the transcripts back. When you get your transcripts back, there'll be a package that will tell you the instructions. You got to get signed up through PSI, and then you can go to any of the testing centers to take the state test. So we got people at different places in their career. That's in their journey, I should say. I would hope everybody has a book. Does everybody have the book?
Yeah, I got the book.
Okay. Alice, do you have the book? Alice, I'm still having a hard time hearing you. Can you try speaking? I have everybody unmuted. There you go.
I have my book.
Who's Galaxy S7?
That's probably me, Tom. Angie.
Oh, is that Angie Summers?
Yes.
What's up, Ange?
How are you?
I'm doing unbelievable. So we got Angie on too. Good job. Good job. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend about an hour today. We got Angie. We're going to spend about an hour today. And when you receive your packet from PSI, you're going to get in it, and it's going to say I should have known it's PSI, Shay. It says right here, PSI Exam Breakdown Study Guide. So everybody should have, when you get your transcripts back, you will get this study guide. Now, the reason I like this study guide is it tells you what parts of the book, or if you're taking strictly online, what parts of the online class, how many questions there will be on the test. So when I was preparing for the class yesterday, I was going to start with chapter 1. And then I started thinking about it, and I says, I don't know how many questions are going to be on chapter 1. So my study guide, I have like these little sticky notes, and I know that there's 11 questions on general knowledge of contract law. And it even tells you on here what page in the book some of these topics are. And some of them are on chapter 18, There is one on leases. I think that may be chapter 1. I could be wrong on that. So there's 11 questions. So I thought that would be a good part. Also, so use this study guide because the book's a big book, isn't it? A lot of material. So, you know, you don't know where to go. You don't know where to focus. So if you focus on the study guide, that will help you make it sure that you're looking at material that is going to show up on a state exam. So we're going to be focusing on chapter 18 to start with today. And chapter 18 is listing agreements and buyer representation contracts. So you may want to make a note somewhere. I would definitely have a piece of scratch paper so you can make some notes. One other quick note. When you go to take the state exam, there's going to be 80 questions on the national. You need 60 to pass, 75%. You have 2 hours, plenty of time, 2 minutes per question. On the state exam, there's going to be 30 questions, and you need to pass 23 of those. Those are 77%. You need 77%. So just to give you an idea, you got plenty of time when you go up to take that state exam. Now, the state part of the test would be chapters 13 in the book. Chapters 13 is all state related. You may want to jot that down. And then I think fair housing, which is chapter 17. So, because you may pass one portion of this, the general will not pass the state, or you may pass the state and not the general, so you need to know where to focus. Or you may feel, boy, I better bone up a little bit on the state. Now you know, go to chapter 13, that's all state related, and fair housing on chapter 17, okay? So I just wanted to cover a little bit of general questions. This is a type of class where I want you to participate. Okay, I want you to participate. That's why I got everybody unmuted. Alice Nelson is still muted. So if you could unmute yourself, Alice, this way you can participate. Vinny, I need you to unmute yourself too. If you got background noise, if you got something going on at your home, you could always mute yourself. But we're going to get to a part where I'm going to be asking you some questions. So I am going to share my screen with you guys. So bear with me.
Am I unmuted?
No, Tom, do you want us to have our book in front of us? Because I don't have mine currently in front of me.
You don't have to. You don't
Okay.
have to. But if you do, I am going to be following along chapter 18. So my presentation follows the chapter 18. Now, I'm not going to get this whole presentation. I may. There's only 18 slides. So I'm going to change this to my view here so that you guys can see it better. Okay, can everybody see that as best as they can?
Yes.
If you're on an iPhone, it's tough. What I would definitely recommend is I am going to be doing a few more of these study groups, try to help you guys get through. I would definitely try to be set up on a computer. If you're going to get into the real estate business right now, you're going to be doing some Zoom meetings. As a matter of fact, at this office, and hopefully all you guys come to this office, we do a Monday morning Zoom meeting at 10 a.m. And we talk about general information that helps the team. And then Tuesday right now we are doing Zoom training on Tuesday. And the Zoom training on Tuesday is how to get traction in real estate. So it's for anybody that wants to get traction in real estate. And then we're going to be doing a few more of these Zoom meetings with the pre-licensing class. So it's important that, I think it's important that you have the screen, the computer, so you can see what I'm throwing up on there. Now is probably the best time ever to get into the real estate business. Just to let you know where the market's at, we were shut down for 2 months. We were shut down for 2 months. And we weren't allowed to have any face-to-face contact with the public. I have somebody just trying to get into the meeting right now. We weren't allowed to have any face-to-face contact with the public. Even in that period, the office was completely shut down. The office was completely shut down. We worked remotely from home. And in this office, through that 8-week period of not being able to have face-to-face contact, not being able to go on appointments, not being able to show homes, not being able to come into the office, we sold 32 homes virtually. Now, we were set up very, very, very well here at this office because we've been working on selling virtually for a long time. So we had all the tools. And we had people that actually made offers on homes, seen them online. We digitally send them the paperwork. They digitally signed them. We send them to all the parties and put the property under contract. We even had our first completely virtual closing with one of the buyers that bought a home from us, but he was from England. And
What
I think-
happened?
I think he clicked himself out.
I think so.
Where did he go? Brianna.
okay, guys, sorry about that. I cut you guys off. Get a hold of Dawn Richards on the phone
Okay,
to give her instructions on how to get in.
yeah, Dawn himself.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. Dawn came in late and I accepted her. So during that time frame, we had 38 homes that we sold. So we were always set up very good here virtually. But we still have everybody on it. Dawn will jump in. Once we went back to work after being shut out for 2 months, once we went back to work in June, it was insane. I'm in my office by myself, so I get rid of that. I put that on because Andrew came in. It was insane. We sold like 80 homes in the month of June. And then we had a bunch of sales in July. And what we're seeing right now is that as soon as people are putting homes on the market, they're selling. And they're selling for well over asking price. So you guys are getting into the business at a good time because the market is good. And you want to learn, once you come on board with us, to be a listing agent. Because listings are selling so fast, the quickest way to make money is to get a listing. And if you can get listings right now and put them on the market, bam, they're sold. So let's get going with the class. So listing agreements and buyer representation. This is chapter
18.
18. Yep. Most business relationships in real estate are created by written agreements. An agency contract may be used to hire the broker. So usually when we talk about an agency contract, we're talking about a buyer agency where you use a buyer agency contract to create that relationship with the buyer where you're going to represent that buyer, or a listing agreement where you're going to create that relationship with the seller. And Dawn's on with us. Thanks, Dawn, for working with us here and getting on. You can unmute your mic because if you guys got any questions, I want you to ask. Agency agreements are basically employment contracts for the personal professional services of a broker. So when I get a buyer agency, let's say Shay called me up. She said, "Hey, Tom, I'm looking to buy a house." I could have Shay come into the office. The first thing you always have to do is have them sign a consumer notice before you get into any information that would give their give their bargaining position away. So the consumer notice is the first document you go over with everybody. As a matter of fact, I have a verbal consumer notice right here that when I talk to people on the phone, I read it over, okay? And you have to read it exactly the way it states. And you have to go over the consumer notice, that same exact form from the state. So just remember that. And you have to go over that consumer notice before your first substantial discussion about real estate. So let's say a buyer calls me. We have I say, "Hey, you got to go." I tell them the consumer notice. The real estate disclosure law requires that I provide you with a written consumer notice that describes the various business relationship choices you may have with a real estate licensee. Since we are discussing real estate without you having the benefit of the consumer notice, I have the duty to advise you that any information you give me at this time is not considered to be confidential, and any information you give me will not be considered confidential unless and until you and I enter into a business relationship. At our first meeting, I will provide you with a written consumer notice which explains those different business relationships and my duties to you. So that's going to be on the test. You need to go over the consumer notice, and at your first substantial meeting, you have to use their form, the state's form, and if you're talking, you better do the verbal. Because I may talk to a buyer and I want to find out, are they pre-approved? What kind of financing? If it's cash, do you have proof of funds? What price range are you in? See, that's all substantial stuff. So agency agreements are employment contracts for the personal professional services of the broker, and the buyer agency agreement would be with the buyer, and the listing agreement would be with the seller. But the consumer notice comes first before you talk to any of those people. Listing agreements and buyer agency contracts are fundamental documents that create a business relationship. So they're the most fundamental documents that we use. Written agreements, the RELA, which is the, if I'm not mistaken, maybe somebody can call me on this if I'm wrong, the Real Estate Licensing and Registration Act states that all agreements have to be in writing. So if you're a licensee, the real estate licensing, what is RELRA? Somebody want to look that up? I don't think I'm saying that right.
RELRA,
Real estate license. Yeah, what does it stand for?
Real
You'll need
Estate
to know
License,
that.
Real Estate Licensing Registration Act. I believe.
Okay, who said that?
Alice.
Alice, good job, Alice. Real Estate Licensing and Registration Act. Know that. It's an important act. It states that all contracts have to be in writing, or all agreements. They have to be negotiated agreements. So two things that need to be negotiated in the agreement. One is the broker fee is negotiable by law, and the other is the duration of the agreement. Now, in Pennsylvania, agreements cannot be longer than 1 year. And I would guess buyer agencies are the same way. So they can't be longer than a year, but they're negotiated. The seller could say, I don't want to sign with you for a year, Tom. I just want to sign with you for 3 months. And it's up to you to negotiate that with the seller and agree. The fee, it's negotiable. I may say, I want 7. He may say, hey, I only pay 5. And we have to negotiate a fee that both parties are in agreement with. So just remember that. The broker may work with competing parties. Okay? The broker may work with competing parties. Broker policy of cooperation and compensation. You know, we have a policy here at the office where we'll work with all the other real estate companies in the area. So if we get a listing, because we've signed a listing agreement, but you have to sign a consumer notice first, and we get a listing and a broker from ABC Real Estate wants to show that, we'll allow them to show that property and fee already pre-agreed upon in the multiple listing server so that they know what they're making if they sell that property. And a lot of other brokers, not every broker, but a lot of other brokers will allow us to work on their listing. And if we bring a buyer, they dictate in the multiple listing service how much the fee is. The purpose of the Real Estate Recovery Fund. The Real Estate Recovery Fund is a fund that is set up that you should all know about. And it's set up that if you did somebody wrong and they file a suit against you and they win the suit and you don't have the money to pay, then the Real Estate Recovery Fund is set up to compensate them. I think the maximum is $20,000 per claim, and the maximum claims you can have are 5. I don't think you can get your real estate license back until you pay that money back to the state with interest, okay? And you have to disclose any possible conflicts of interest. You know, there's been a lot of times that I went on an appointment, and maybe it's a listing appointment, and I say, boy, my brother may be interested in this house. So I just want to let you know up front that if we put this house on the market, my brother may be interested. Or maybe it's yourself. Maybe you go on the appointment and say, hey, I may buy this house. If we come to terms on price, and it's a price that, and we list it for a price that I'm happy with. So anytime that there's going to be a conflict of interest, and you have to disclose that to the parties, okay? And again, the consumer notice, which we went over. So let's talk about listing agreements. The listing agreement is between the broker and the consumer. And it's professional services. Only the broker is authorized to represent the consumer, okay? not the agents, not the agents. So if you go out and get a listing, you're getting that listing on the broker's behalf, on the broker's behalf. Okay. Just bear with me, guys, for 1 second. Okay. The broker, only the broker is authorized to represent the consumer. The broker authorizes affiliated licensees. So let's say, Tim, you work for me.
Yes.
And you go out, I authorize you to go out and get a listing.
Okay.
I'm authorizing you to get that listing, but you're taking that listing in your broker's name.
Yes.
I authorize you to work with a buyer, and you sign that buyer agency agreement, and you sell them a house. You then, in turn, I am representing that buyer, even if I never met them, and I'm authorizing you to work with them. Okay.
Okay.
The listings stay with the broker. So if for some reason you would leave the broker, any of your listings stay behind. And the broker is the only one that could dispense compensation. This is very important, maybe on the test. Just remember that if you work for Howard Hanna Simon Real Estate Services, the only person you're able to get compensation from is Howard Hanna Simon Real Estate Services. Period. That broker. So even if you sell another agency's listing, the check comes to this office and then it's dispersed to you. And it's kind of funny. I had a guy that I was talking to, and he's an appraiser, and he works for a broker. And he said he was going to send me a referral. And I said to him, I said, okay, well then I'll send you a check. And he said, well, I talked to another agent, and another agent said he'd just give me a $100 bill. I said, that's illegal, man. If you accept that compensation from that other agent, that's illegal. And if you get caught, you can lose your license or get fined. The only person that you're allowed to take compensation from is your broker, and your broker is allowed to pay his sales agents or another broker. So in that case, where that real estate appraiser, or let's call him a real estate agent, sent me a referral, I sent his referral check, and I'm going to make a note to tell him, to call him and tell him it's in the mail. I sent his referral check made out to his broker. Made out to his broker. And then I told him, then whatever arrangement you have with your broker will determine how much of that referral you get. So that's very important. You're only allowed to take compensation from, and compensation can be anything of value, from your broker, So let's talk about the different types of listing agreements. Let's talk about the different types of listing agreements, okay? There's an exclusive right to sell listing agreement. I won't be surprised if you'll see some of these pop up on your test. An exclusive right to sell listing agreement is the one we like the best, and we use it the most, not all the time, but the most. And Pennsylvania requires this statement to be bold. Exclusive right to sell listing agreement. The broker earns a commission on the sale or lease of the property, regardless who, including the owner, makes the sale or lease during the listing period. So why would I like this listing agreement the most?
Because you're gonna get paid either way.
I'm going to get paid either way. Okay. I'm going to get paid either way. Because there's a lot of times that we put a sign in the yard and then a neighbor comes over and tells the owner, I'll buy the house. And the owner calls me up and says, I got a buyer. I want you to work on my fee. No. We got an exclusive right to sell contract. Regardless who brings the buyer, we're due a fee. If another real estate agent brings the buyer, we're due a fee. And the seller pays the listing broker, and then the listing broker compensates the cooperating broker. That's how it works, okay? Then you have an exclusive agency listing. And in this, one broker is authorized to act as an exclusive agent for the principal, but the seller retains the right to sell himself and not pay a broker fee. So let's say that we have somebody that says, I have possibly a buyer, okay, that may be interested in the house. Or the seller says to you, I may want the opportunity to sell myself and not pay you a fee. Then you would use an exclusive agency listing. You need to know it for the test. We never use it very much in real life. Then an open listing, the seller has the right to contract with several brokers and only pay the broker who brings a ready, willing, and able buyer. If the seller sells it himself, no fee. So in that case, I'm selling my house or Dawn's selling her house. And let's say Angie works for one broker, Alice works for a broker, Tim works for a broker. If any one of you guys bring Dawn a buyer at a pre-agreed upon price and you consummate the sale, you get a fee. If Dawn finds a buyer herself, everybody's cut out. So an open listing, the seller still has a right to sell and he has a right to contract with several brokers. Do you see why I like the exclusive right to sell agreement?
Yeah.
And that's the one we use most of the time. The multiple listing service, the MLS, you may hear me talk about that, may have a clause in it that says all listings are exclusive right to sell. So we're a member of the West Penn Multiple Listing Service. It's the biggest multiple listing service in the area, okay? It's the only one that I know of. And we're a member of that multiple listing service, and that multiple listing service says, if you want to put a listing in the multiple listing service, it has to be an exclusive right to sell. Net listing. A net listing can create a conflict of interest between the broker's fiduciary responsibility to the seller and the broker's profit motive. It's illegal in many states. Does anybody know what a net listing would be?
It's like if you tell them you want to end up with a certain amount, right? And then the rest of it goes to the broker.
Yes. So, perfect. So a net listing would be if I'm the seller and Alice is the agent, and I say to Alice, give me $100,000 in my pocket, you keep anything more. That's a net listing. And in most states it's illegal because the agent may be looking at that house and saying, that house is worth $150,000. I'll take that deal any day of the week. So that's why that particular net listing is illegal in most states.
It is illegal in PA, right?
Excuse me?
Is it illegal in PA?
Yes.
I can't tell you that. Can anybody answer that?
Yes, it's
I
illegal.
think so.
It's illegal in PA? Okay.
Yeah.
It's illegal. Good. So we would never use a net listing. We use two types of listing agreements. Okay, we use the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, and we do use an exclusive agency, but where only our office is authorized to sell it, but we do not allow the seller to sell it himself. So we do use these too, because the market's so hot right now, and you have to put a listing in the multiple listing service within 72 hours. As soon as you put that listing in right now, if it's a halfway decent listing, you're getting multiple offers on it the first week, sometimes the first day. So because of that, I'm advising my agents to use the exclusive agency listing, but not allow the seller to sell himself, because in this case, it gives us an opportunity to try to sell that property first before it goes to the multiple listing service. Now, what would be the advantage of a seller to do that exclusive agency listing with Howard Hanna?
With the exclusive agency listing, the advantage would be that he already has a seller there, but if he backs out, he still got somebody there that would sell it exclusively for them.
Well, the exclusive agency listing basically states that Howard Hanna Simon Real Estate Services is the only company authorized to sell that property. So we're the only company authorized to sell it. Now, the advantage that I tell sellers is we can do an exclusive agreement for 2 weeks.
Okay.
My agents are the most well-trained agents in Western Pennsylvania, and they are. Most brokers will tell you that. They tell people come to Howard Hanna to get trained. So we can put a property on the market with an exclusive listing, and I call it a soft open, because you ever hear a restaurant does a soft open and then they have people come and, friends and relatives, and they eat, and everybody runs through the routine. I say we could do a soft open, but if we're doing a soft open and exclusive agency listing and we're asking 125, we're going to tell the buyers the only offer you're going to accept is 125, because if we don't get an offer of 125 in 2 weeks, it's going into multiple listing service. Then you're going to be competing with every other buyer in the area. So that's how I use the exclusive agency listing, especially in this environment. So, yes, sir.
Was that the exclusive agency listing or the exclusive right to sell?
No, the exclusive right to sell is the broker earns a commission on the sale or release of the property regardless of who, including the owner, makes the sale. So the exclusive right to sell is open to everybody. Other real estate brokers can cooperate with you and so forth. The exclusive agency, only one broker.
Okay.
But just remember, for the test, the exclusive agency, the seller can still sell it without paying a fee.
Okay.
That's what you need to know. So you need to know that exclusive right to sell, regardless who sells the property, the brokers do a fee. Exclusive agency, only one agency, but the seller can still sell it and not pay a fee. An open listing, everybody can show it. And whoever brings the buyer, the seller pays that broker. And the seller can sell himself. And in that listing, again, where you set a number, and then anything over that the broker gets. So let's talk about termination and how you would terminate an agreement, a listing agreement. If the purpose is fulfilled, how would the purpose be fulfilled?
The transaction went through completely?
Yeah, you sold the house. Or it expired. Remember I said in Pennsylvania, listing agreement for a residential house can't be more than a year, right?
Right.
So let's say you negotiate with a seller a listing agreement for 1 year. At the end of that year comes and you haven't sold the house, the agreement's terminated. Or if the property is destroyed or the use would be changed, how would the use be changed?
If it's the house being used for a business, well, I can't use that. That's not a good example. My bad.
Anybody else got an idea? I like the communication.
Hmm.
How would the use be changed on property where if you had something listed and the use was changed, where you'd have to maybe terminate the agreement?
It wouldn't be
Zoning.
if it was from residential to commercial.
Yeah, maybe the zoning would change.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they would change the zoning and say, okay, these have to be commercial properties. I don't know. Or title is transferred under law. What do we mean by that? Anybody have a guess at that?
Hmm.
Title would be transferred under law.
Someone died.
What happens if you don't make your payments?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
lien.
foreclosed.
It goes into foreclosure and the sheriff sells the property.
Yeah.
That would be transferred under law. So if you have a listing and it goes into foreclosure and if foreclosure is complete and is transferred by the sheriff and he sells it, the agreement's done. Mutual agreement by all parties. You may have a listing agreement for 1 year with somebody and the seller says 6 months into it, I want to break the agreement. And you say 6 months, you say, guy's a pain in the butt, causing you all kind of headaches. You could say, yeah, okay, I agree. We'll release each other. Or death or incapacity of either party. Death or incapacity of either party. Or breach of agreement. So those are the reasons that you could terminate. And probably what they'll do is they'll probably have multiple choice. How can you breach a contract? How can you terminate a listing agreement? And they may have 3 of these. They may have 3 of these and then throw something else in there.
Tom, I got a question.
Go ahead. Tim.
With duress, if they did it under duress, like signed the contract under duress, could that terminate it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I would think that they could argue that they signed it under duress, but what do you mean by duress? So give me an example, Tim.
They're being pressured to sign it because
Well,
let's say
no. I don't think just because the salesperson is pressuring you and you sign it, that they can legally get out of the agreement.
not the salesperson, a third party, a different party pressuring the other.
I would say with the rest, Tim, keep it simple. No.
Okay.
Let's keep the question no. If you dig into the book, there's reasons a contract could be terminated. If the party's a minor.
Okay. If he's a minor, he's underage, he can't sign it.
Right. Now, Tim, let me address that. Okay? If I put a gun to your head and I said, Tim, sell this house, and I made you sign that agreement, it would be voidable.
Okay.
Meaning you can void the agreement. You may wake up the next day and say, you know what? I'm kind of glad he pointed that gun to my head. I needed to sell this house anyway. I want to keep the listing intact.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be void or terminated. It would be voidable by that person. Okay? So you were right. Good question. Yes.
I have a question also. Say, could your agreement be terminated due to like avulsion and things like that?
Ange, give that to me again.
Could it be terminated due to avulsion, erosion? Like, could that terminate the agreement? Because then the property is pretty much there for no, but how would that work?
I would consider that the property be destroyed. You're saying
Okay.
if you had a lot along the river and the river
Yeah.
came by and flooded it out and took it out, yeah,
Yeah.
I would think that would be considered destroyed,
So therefore terminated then because it was destroyed.
probably.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, listing the property is a twofold event. Remember we talked about the consumer notice? And all required disclosures must be given before substantial issues are discussed. Now, when I say required disclosures, I mean that consumer notice has to be go over, and if there's a conflict of interest. Remember I said if there's a conflict of interest, you gotta disclose that up front. So that's what they're talking about. And then the listing contract is entered into between the buyer and the seller. Okay? We're going to stop right here on this portion. And I was on slide 8. Okay? Slide 8. So I'm going to make a note of that, because I may pick this class up the next time we get together. And this is slide 8, chapter 18. And we're going to go to some questions and answers. Okay? So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And then I'm going to reshare the screen. And I'm going to ask, I want you to read these questions. I'll read them. And whoever knows the answer, chirp it out. A couple's apartment lease has expired, but their landlord, I'm going to minimize this so you can see it. There you go. A couple's apartment lease has expired, but the landlord has indicated that they may remain on the premises until a sale of the building is closed. The tenant will be charged their normal monthly rent during the period. The tenancy held by the tenant is called, what would it be called?
Estate at will.
An estate at will. Very good. A company built a very large complex of buildings from which it operates worldwide. How can the company extract the maximum amount of money from these real estate holdings?
Sublease a portion to the tenants at current market rates.
No.
Use the sell and lease back.
Sell and lease back. Read the question. I want you to read the questions twice from here on out. Also, I want you to work with the book, okay? And when you're working in the book, at the end of every chapter, take those chapter quizzes. And don't write in the book, write on a piece of scratch paper your answers, and then the ones you miss, go back into the book and look up. But read every question twice, because let me read this again. A company built a very large complex of buildings from which it operates worldwide. How can the company extract the maximum amount of money out of these real estate holdings? The use of a sale and lease back. They can get the maximum. Because now, if they wait a few years and then sell to the highest bidder, possibly, sublease a portion to tenants at the current market rate. Well, they're only going to be collecting rent. Refinance and invest funds in the stock market. Well, I don't know about that. Stock market could be risky. But to use a sale and lease back, let's say those properties was worth $5 million. They could sell them for $5 million and still be able to rent them out. Now, from what I understand, Gabriel Brothers did this at the Gabe's building in the Gabe's Plaza in Bell Vernon. Now, I don't know this to be 100% true, but from what I understand, the Gabriel Brothers sold that one building, not the whole complex, and then they leased it back from the people that bought it. Now, why would somebody do that? Maybe the company needed cash. Maybe the company didn't want to have to deal with maintenance. So I own this, the building that I'm in right here. Okay, and I paid too much for it when I bought it. We paid $500,000. We bought this building off Joe Hardy, founder of 84 Lumber. And then we put $250,000 into it. So let's say I needed money, but I still wanted to operate out of this space. I could sell this building to somebody and then have an agreement with them that I could lease it back off of them. So let's say I got $500,000 for the building. I put that money in my pocket, run my business, do whatever I need to do. Then I can lease back and still have the property. See how that works, guys?
Yeah.
That sale and lease back. Next question. All of the following tenancies involve a leaseor and leasee relationship, except
Tennessee,
Or B.
Tennessee, a Tennessee in common?
no.
I'm gonna say A.
All of the following tenancies involve a leaseor and leasee relationship. I've never heard of tenancy from mouth to mouth. Oh yes, tenants in common. Tenants in common. A tenancy at will, we know what that is. We just talked about that, right? The lease is up, the tenant's still paying, the landlord says you can stay there until it sells. A tenancy from month to month would be a month-to-month tenancy. The tenant can cancel at any time. A tenancy of year to year would be the same thing. It would be a year, and then at the end of that year, the tenant could renew it, or the landlord could let them renew it for a year. So a tenant in common is not. What is a tenancy in common?
Isn't that where two people have the same amount of portion in a building, or a same
Yes.
in a
Yes.
house, whatever?
In a piece of real estate, you hit the nail on the head. Tenants in common would be if two people bought a building and they each had 50%. Or if four people bought a building and they each had 25%, okay? And you need to know those tenancies too. I'm not sure which chapter they're on.
7.
Okay. What chapter?
7.
7. Good. And
Yeah.
you're good. What you do is what we preach at the classes. If you don't know something, you go back to the book, in the back of the book at the glossary, and you look and see what page it's on. Then you go to that page and read it, huh?
Yes.
I know you do. You're ready. You're ready for this test. A tenant's lease has expired, but the tenant has not vacated the premises or negotiated a renewal lease. And the landlord has declared that he does not want the tenant to remain in the building. what type of occupancy is called an estate?
At sufferance,
It's sufferance. It's sufferance. Right. Because the tenant, yes, a tenancy is sufferance. And what I always say, you can remember that because who's suffering?
tenant, everybody.
No,
Everybody.
the tenant.
The landlord. The
The
landlord.
landlord is. The tenant's staying there. Okay? Against the landlord's will. A man and his sister bought a store building, taking title as joint tenants. The man dies testate. His sister now owns the store as. Let's chop this question up. What's dies testate mean?
It means he had
I
a,
will.
Get a will.
Okay. With a will or without a will?
He's with a will.
Okay. The sister now owns the store. How?
As a tenant in no. As the brother
Hey.
there,
She's survivor.
beneficiary.
A, B, C, or D?
A.
I say C.
You say C. Okay. What does joint tenancy typically have attached to it? Most married couples take title as joint tenants. Joint tenancy typically has the right of survivorship. So with joint tenants, if the man dies, even if he has a will, the right of survivorship would go to the sister and she would own it in severity. She would own it by herself. Let's say you get a group of guys. They buy a beach house, all four of them. They can say, let's take tenants. Let's buy this as joint tenants with the right of survivorship. Okay? And the last man standing owns the building. So when three of them pass away, the last guy standing, he owns it. Now, if they took it as tenants in common, okay, with tenants in common, in this same situation, and the man died with a will, his portion would go to his estate. So you have to know the difference between tenants in common and joint tenancy with the right of survivorship. Now, severity is just one person owning it. Okay?
So his will meant absolutely nothing then at that point.
Right, because when they bought the property, they bought it as joint tenants.
Okay.
And joint tenants usually has the right of survivorship. The owner of a fee simple estate conveys the farm to the state to be used as a park, but reserves the right to live in the old farmhouse. The owner has what kind of interest?
C.
No, because the owner, let's read it. The owner has a fee simple estate, conveys the farm to the state to be used as a park. So
D.
he's conveying the property to the state to use as a park, but reserves the right to live in the old farmhouse.
D, a life interest.
He has a life interest. We had that situation with the Anthony's family that owns Anthony Cranes. They bought a 40-acre parcel off of us. And there was a little old lady who lived in a mobile home. We stopped on 56. She lived in a mobile home. And she sold the property to him, but she says, as long as I'm living, I want to stay here. And that's a life estate. And when she passed away, then that property, that trailer that she was living in, converted back to the house. listen, the whole idea of us getting together today was not for you to come away from this 1 hour and say, boy, I know enough to take the test. The whole idea, the whole reason I did this was to engage with you, to pull you back in, because you all went through something no other class ever went through. You were ready to take your test, or almost ready, and COVID came and put a stop on everything. We just started being able to test in July. And I had people that graduated my February class. Dawn, you graduated the February class, right? In late February, and you couldn't get scheduled for the test. So the whole idea of these study groups is to get you engaged, to have you open the books up and start digging in, and to keep you on track. That's why I'm doing this today. So I will probably schedule another study group, since we've had such good participation. We will probably have another study group next Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yes, at 10 a.m.
Will you be sending out emails again?
Yep, I'll do the same thing. So I'm going to put in my schedule right now, study group. And what we're going to do is we're going to finish off where we stopped today. So I'll finish off on chapter 18, whatever slide I was on. I'll figure that out. And we'll just pick the pace back up right there, because at chapter 18, there's about 10 questions on the exam on that chapter. So that's a good chapter. And if you guys have any problems, you can always shoot me a question, shoot me a call. And I like when you participate back and forth. And if you see anything that we can do to enhance your experience with these Zoom training meetings, please reach out to me. I screwed up today. I'm so used to doing a 10 o'clock meeting, and I had a dentist appointment at 11, so I pushed it back to 1. At 10 o'clock, I started my meeting. And I think I text Shay yesterday, meeting starts at 10, because I always got that 10 o'clock mentality in my mind. So if there's anything you think I can do to enhance this, to make it a little better for you, please do that. I want you, if you have a book, I want you to really use these books. Don't read the whole book. But most of you have the study guide, right? That
I
came
don't
with
know
your
if I
PSI
have.
I
kit.
don't have their study guide.
I don't think I
Okay.
have that either.
Well, you're not ready yet, Tim, because you didn't get your transcripts.
Right.
So you got a different mission. You got to finish the part of the exam. Did you finish practice or fundamentals? Tim.
I'm
Which-
thinking. I got
Okay.
it was the midterm one there. I mean, so I'm guessing
Okay.
that would be like the fundamentals, I guess.
I'm not sure. Usually we do the fundamentals first, then we do the practice.
Okay.
So the fundamentals is typically, if you have a book, chapters 1 through 13.
I didn't have the book. I was online,
Okay.
remember?
Who did you use online? It don't matter. It don't matter, Tim.
I got it right
You
here.
know what you know what you have to do, and I'm sure we have it in our notes. You know what you have to do to pass. You need to get your transcripts. You're in a different boat. Some of the other people here already got their transcripts, and when they got their transcripts, they got the study guide sent to them.
Right.
And so you're not worried about the study guide. You're going to get that.
Yeah.
When you pass your transcripts, they'll send you, when you pass your test, they'll send you the transcripts, and then you'll get the study guide. For the rest of the group, you already got your transcripts. I think everybody else did. Vinny's still working on his. So Vin, when you get your transcripts, you'll get the study guide. Everybody else, work off of that study guide and look at the sections that have a lot of questions and work on those ones first. And it even tells you what page it's in.
Hey, Tom.
Yes, sir.
How long does it take for the transcripts to come in?
I don't know, because they're working remotely, but I would think that you should have them in a reasonable amount of time,
Okay.
maybe 2 weeks.
I got mine fairly quickly.
Yeah. So the person you need to talk to, Vin, is Joe T. But you emailed. I'll talk to you later about it. Okay, Vin?
Okay. Sounds good. Thank
I'll
you.
call you. I'll call you after the call, because your situation is a little different. Tim, get
Yeah.
going, man. You got to
Yeah,
go
I
till
gotta-
the end of the month.
Okay.
Angie, Shay, Alice, Dawn, get scheduled for that test. Put a stake in the ground. I don't care if it's a month out. And for you 4 guys, since you're getting ready for the test, the app on the phone, I'm getting a lot of good reviews from. Okay. Let me see if I can pull the app up.
PA Real Estate.
That may be the one. It says real estate, and it's a red app. See it? So I got 2 apps there. That red, it looks like a red app, and it says real estate. Then the other one is a house that says PA. The PA one's for the state test. The real estate one is for the national. And I'm getting a lot of good response on both of these apps, that you can be just taking the questions, man. You know, have a goal. And like, if you can't get to the book that day, have a goal to answer 5 questions, and it'll tell you which one you got wrong. So that's where we're at today. Anybody else have any questions? Have a great day. I have it in the schedule for next Wednesday, 10 a.m. And I promise you, we'll get you an email out with the meeting ID. It's always the same, 724-929-9699. And I'll do what I can do to help stay engaged with you guys. The whole idea is to stay engaged and to keep you on track. Because if you say, okay, good, next Wednesday I'm going to go at 10 o'clock and I'm going to go on a Zoom meeting, you're more apt to pick the book up a little bit between now and then. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Take the test. Get it scheduled. There's nothing like, if you set a goal and you put it out ahead of yourself, you'll work towards it. And that's why I like setting a date for that test. If you think you need to do it 6 weeks, do 6 weeks. But if you think you can do it in a month, 2 weeks, do that. Okay, guys, have a great day. In the meantime, if you know it's for sale, please call me. The market is crazy hot. It's a seller's market. And I think you guys are getting into business at a great time, and we're here to help you. I will help you, and my team will help you every step of the way. That's what we do here. We're a training office, and we'll help you be successful in real estate too. So thank you very much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you,
You
Tom.
too.
How's everybody doing today to start off? Good.
Fantastic.
Okay, good. So the first thing I got to teach you is how to answer that question when people ask you, Shay, how you doing? Your
I'm
answer
wonderful.
is always the same. Unbelievable.
Okay.
So let's practice that. Group, how are you doing?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Now, if they say, now that could cover it either way. Unbelievable good, unbelievable bad. But people like that. People like that positivity. So we're going to get started today on some training, and we're still focusing on chapter 18 and talking about contracts. So let me see if I can share my screen. I'm going to try. Hey, listen, we're learning with Zoom here, just like everybody in the world. So we're trying to get better with it. So I'm going to see if I can get some videos working on Zoom. I'm going to experiment with it. Hey, Andrea, can you come in for 1 second? So you guys bear with me. Can you guys see that?
No.
Okay. Just bear with me.
We can see your screen now.
Perfect. Can you see it now?
Yes.
See that video, types of listings?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're getting better at this. Here, we got somebody else who wants to be admitted. So enjoy the video. Now, what you should be doing is, you should be using those apps on your phone and take a practice test and go to YouTube. And I like his prep agent. He has a lot of good videos. So I have some that I've saved in my library. So since we're talking about contracts and a listing is a contract, let's watch this video.
Tom, is there audio with this?
What's that?
Is there audio with this?
Yes, can you hear the audio?
No.
No, not at all.
Okay, we're gonna work on that. Just bear with me because we're getting better. We're getting better at this. Let me go see if I can get my helper Andrea to help me. I should be able to do this stuff myself. Hold on one second. Hey, Andrea, they can't hear the computer audio for some reason. They can hear me, but they can't hear the video.
Oh, because you have to connect it with, go ahead to the screen share. Okay. Now you have to more, here.
Share computer sound.
Yes, there you go. I'll see if I can hear it.
Let me know if you guys can hear this.
Different types of listing.
Can you
First,
hear it?
let's go over what an exclusive listing is. In an exclusive listing, only one broker can be hired. The listing belongs to the broker exclusively. Because only one broker can be hired, there must be a specific termination date. It can't be 90 days from the completion of construction. It has to be 90 days from signing. If two exclusive listings are signed, the seller could be liable for 2 commissions. This is all stated in the contract. Remember, in a listing, there should only be 1 commission. The seller hires the broker to find the buyer, and that's it. People think there are 2 commissions, one to the broker of the seller and one to the broker of the buyer. Some people even think there are 4 if you include the agents. But in actuality, there is only 1. The broker of the seller gets the commission and then shares that 1 commission with the broker of the buyer for helping him or her.
So, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so an exclusive listing, these are the listings we use 95% of the time. And as a matter of fact, to put it in a multiple listing service, you have to have an exclusive listing. So he's right. But we cooperate with other brokers. So let's say that we put a listing in a multiple listing service. We're the listing broker. And ABC Real Estate is the broker for the buyer. Now, if you notice, Shay, I did not mention another real estate company's name.
Correct.
Why?
Because it's exclusive, only you guys can sell?
No. I could have said 123 Real Estate, who may be in Bell Vernon. And you would have said, okay, right? Aren't there other real estate companies? I'm gonna say a name just to prove my point. Isn't there a company called Berkshire Hathaway?
Yes.
That was the only time, to make the example, I never give another real estate company a commercial if I'm talking to somebody. So when I'm talking about real estate and other companies in my real estate business, I never say, well, Berkshire Hathaway or Century 21, because when you do that, you're giving that company credibility in a commercial. I never say an agent's name unless it's one of my agents by name. Oh yeah, Sally Doe or something, I don't know. So never give another company a commercial by saying that. So that's why I always say, when I'm talking about a competitor, I always call them either ABC Real Estate, and there is no ABC, or 123 Real Estate. 123. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Never give your competition a commercial.
Okay.
Never give them. So if Howard Hanna Simon has a listing and we put it in a multiple listing service and ABC Real Estate brings the buyer, the seller only pays one fee to Howard Hanna Simon Real Estate Services. And then we agree to split that fee with ABC. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you may think that the seller can pay the listing broker and a selling broker. No, the seller pays the listing broker then pays the selling broker. Now, when the seller pays the listing broker, a lot of times there's an agent. So let's say one of my agents, Sally, is the listing agent. She would be the agent for the broker, and Howard Hanna Simon would be the listing broker. So the seller doesn't pay Sally, the seller only pays Howard Hanna, and then Howard Hanna would pay its agents. As a matter of fact, the question on the test will be, who can you accept compensation from? The only person you're allowed to accept compensation from is your broker,
Mm-hmm.
or broker to broker. So in this case, if the commission was $1,000 and ABC Real Estate found the buyer, and I agreed to give them half the commission, I could pay my agent, the listing agent, and they have listing broker, but I would rather call that the listing agent, and I can pay ABC Real Estate, and then ABC Real Estate pays their agent. You see how that works? It's important to know that, because that could be a question on the test. And we got a couple. Alice is joining again. We must have bumped her off. So let's keep going with the video, because I like these videos because we can
helping him or her find a buyer. The way that one commission is divided must be disclosed to the seller. The brokers will then share that commission with the agent who facilitated the transaction on their behalf. An exclusive authorization or right to sell listing is more commonly known, well, as a listing. I say that because your standard listing is an exclusive right to sell listing. You know, when you see one sign in the front yard on an open house that says for sale, that is typically an exclusive right to sell listing. The key element of this type of listing is that regardless of how a buyer comes to the conclusion that they want to buy the house, the broker is getting paid a commission. This helps avoid any potential conflict between the broker who is trying to solicit a buyer and the seller who hired them to list the property. To put it in more technical terms, the listing broker does not need to show that he or she is the procuring cause of the buyer. Next, we have an exclusive agency listing. Much like in the exclusive right to sell listing, the seller would only work with one broker. However, there is one huge difference. In an exclusive agency listing, if the owner sells it themselves, the agent gets no commission.
Okay, so see how that works on an exclusive right to sell. Exclusive right to sell. And this is the one we use 95% of the time. The seller pays a fee to the listing broker regardless who sells it. Regardless. So that's why we use that 95% of the time. So if we have an exclusive right to sell and we list the property and the seller calls us the next day and says, I found a buyer. That's great. Let us handle it. But there's no negotiating the fee at that point because the seller's already agreed. Now on an exclusive agency listing, it's a race. If we can find a buyer, we get a fee. If the seller finds a buyer, we get nothing. See the difference? Exclusive right to sell, regardless, the seller pays a fee. Exclusive agency, if the seller sells it, there's no fee paid to the broker.
That's right, nothing. This means the agent would have to prove that they were the reason the buyer is there to buy the house. In terms of the real estate exam, the agent would have to prove that they were the procuring cause of the buyer. Imagine there was a broker for sale sign.
Let's talk about that word, procuring cause. Do any of you guys know the definition?
Ready, willing, able, or
Okay, yeah. Who was saying that?
ready, willing, able? That was me, Alice.
Yep, that would be a broker who found a ready, willing, and able buyer that started a chain of events that led to the sale of the property.
On the front yard of a house, and right next to it there was a for sale sign by owner. Thinking about that makes you realize why agents do not use an exclusive agency listing. If somebody's buying the house, the last thing you want to do is fight with the seller about who procured the buyer. Remember, if the seller can prove that they brought them there, under an exclusive agency listing, they will pay you nothing. Imagine if a seller wanted to sell a house and a broker came up to him and said, if I bring a buyer, will you pay me a commission? And the seller said, yes, of course. Then 10 minutes later, another broker came up to him and said, if I bring a buyer, will you pay me a commission? And the seller said, yes, of course. Then this kept happening over and over and over again, and the seller has agreed to the same deal with all of these brokers. Most probably, they would be using an open listing. Does not sound like a bad thing, right? Whoever brings the buyer gets paid for it, as long as they are the principal in the transaction or they have an active real estate license. The problem with this is, why would you as a broker spend time and money advertising somebody's house to find a buyer if there's a good chance somebody else will get paid and you'll get nothing because the listing is not exclusive to anybody? You as the broker would have to prove that you are the procuring cause of the buyer. This can be very tricky to do. Imagine if every broker sign was in the front yard. How do you determine which broker sign drew in that buyer? This is just one of many complications with this type of listing. That is why you do not see this in a standard residential sale. However, there are situations where this type of listing is appropriate. For example, the developer or builder would enter into an open listing with brokerage firms in the area. They bring their buyers into the subdivision, and if the buyer buys, then they get paid. The last listing we're going to go over is a net listing. A net listing is when an agent agrees to sell an owner's property for a set minimum price. Anything over that minimum price belongs to the agent as commission. Thus, in a net listing, there is no stipulated selling price and no stipulated commission. For example, a property owner wants to obtain $500,000 for their property. If the agent sells it for $550,000, they make $50,000. Sounds great, right? The problem is that if the agent sells for $500,000, the agent makes nothing. The agent would have to manipulate the list price in order to earn a commission. This creates an inherent conflict of interest, making it illegal in most states.
So there are your different types of listing contracts or listing agreements. And it's very important to know the difference. On an exclusive right to sell agreement, somebody explained to me an exclusive right to sell.
An exclusive right to sell is where you have one agent, one broker, and no matter who, whether the
Good.
owner finds a buyer or you find a buyer, you always get paid for that.
Right. So with an exclusive right to sell, regardless who finds the buyer, the broker gets paid.
Correct.
How about an exclusive agency?
The exclusive agency is where you're pretty much in competition with the owner. If the owner finds
Okay.
a buyer, they do not have to pay the commission.
Okay, good. Vonnie, explain an open listing to me.
Many brokers competing with each other.
They could have many brokers.
Yeah,
And
one broker gets paid. Whoever sells it gets paid.
whoever is a procuring cause.
Yes.
That's the term we use. And then, can anybody explain a net listing?
I will.
Go ahead.
Where the seller sets a price of, say, $250,000, and then you can sell it for $300,000 as long as they get what they are asking for it. But it is illegal, I know, in PA.
And in most states, a net listing is illegal. Most states, a net listing is illegal. So let's see if I could go to another video. Just bear with me, guys, because I'm still trying to get good at this.
Oh no, did your game just get interrupted by an update? It's switching time to a Chromebook that updates automatically. Switch to updates without interruption. Switch to Chromebook.
Command Elite is thrilled to announce our partnership with Whoop, the human performance company.
As a lead athlete, pass your real estate exam with prepagent.com. Remember, keep it concise and keep it simple. In a lease, the landlord is the lessor and the tenant is the lessee. Remember, OR gives and EE receives.
OR gives, EE receives. So that, can everybody hear the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you are the landlord, you're giving the lease to the tenant, correct? Or
Yep.
let the tenant use the property. How about, we'll get into those ORs and EEs a little bit more, but there's one kind of exception to that rule. So trustee and trustor. The trustor would be giving the trustee the property, okay? Now, leasee, leaseor. And I have them handy here. We'll go over those before the end of the day, before the end of this session to help you with it.
Oral leases can be binding, but generally leases are written and give exclusive possession of the property to the lessee and a reversionary right and give exclusive possession.
Did you hear what he said? oral leases could be binding. Now, the real estate law requires a real estate agent to have all contracts in writing. But if Shay was not a real estate licensee and she had a rental property and she told the tenant, a prospective tenant, hey, I'll lease you this property for $1,000 a month for a year, even if you didn't put it in writing, it could be considered binding. It's a very important note.
Possession of the property to the lessee and a reversionary right to the lessor. A reversionary right means the owner has the right to regain possession of the property after the lease has expired. Just like in any other contract, a valid lease must contain mutual agreement, consideration, capable parties, and lawful object.
Okay. That's important to know. See what he said? Just like in any other contracts. So a contract, regardless if it's a lease or a sales agreement or a listing agreement, must have these 4 items. Must be mutually agreed upon. There must have consideration. They have to be capable parties, and a lawful, objection.
The lessee, which is the tenant, has the right of quiet enjoyment and possession of the property, which is the assurance that their possession will not be disturbed by anybody with superior title, which, by the way,
Quiet enjoyment, another key word. See, this is a terms test. If you take your book and you know all the terms on every chapter, and every chapter has terms in it. If you know what those terms are, you'll ace this test. This is a terms test. So quiet enjoyment, okay? Now you just heard him say it, maybe he wasn't paying attention. Does anybody know what quiet enjoyment means?
Quiet enjoyment is where you got a lease pretty much, a title pretty much clear free. You don't have to worry about anything coming back at you, liens or anything like that.
Good job, Tim. You're on it, man. You're right. Quiet enjoyment means that if I lease a property to Vonnie, that nobody's going to come in and say, Vonnie, I have an interest in this property. You have to go out. You have to leave. That's what it means. Now, unless there would be a foreclosure and it's the government coming in, would be a different story. But another individual can't. And that's what quiet enjoyment means. And that's, you would think that quiet enjoyment means that you can have a right to, peacefully stay in the house. Doesn't.
makes that whole premise of that great 80s show, Three's Company, with Mr. Roper barging in on Jack Tripper, a little bit flawed. Anyways, let's move on. The lease is a bilateral contract which both the landlord and the tenant have obligations to perform. Remember, bilateral means a promise for a promise. I promise to let you live in the property if you promise to pay.
Okay. Give me an example of a unilateral contract. Because there's bilateral and unilateral. Okay. A listing agreement would be a unilateral. Only one person is obligated. So if you, Ange,
Yes.
if you go and you list somebody's home, are you required to sell it?
No.
No. So you're not bound to sell that house. But if you do sell it, do you get a fee?
Yes.
See, a unilateral, one person's obligated if something happens. But a lease is a bilateral. A sales agreement is a bilateral. On a lease, you're agreeing to pay a fee, right?
Right.
Seller's agreeing to let you stay there. Both ends have an obligation. A sales agreement, bilateral. When you buy a house, you agree to give them X amount of money, they agree to give you the house. So a listing agreement is unilateral. Only one person is obligated to perform if a certain action happens. Good terms we're pulling here today, huh, guys?
Would contingencies be considered a bilateral or unilateral?
What's that, Tim?
Would a contingency?
Well, a contingency is still an agreement. That would be a sales agreement, which would be a bilateral agreement, and it just has a contingency that something has to happen.
Okay.
So the contingency has nothing to do with the type of an agreement it is.
Okay.
It's the agreement is contingent upon something happening. It could be contingent upon a mortgage, contingent upon a home inspection. It could be contingent upon a selling somebody's home.
Promise to pay. The lease agreement can restrict the tenant's use of the property and specify the conditions of which a security deposit may be retained and the duration of the rental. Death does not usually terminate the lease. Upon death of one of the parties, the responsibilities, as stated in the agreement, could pass on to the heirs of the deceased.
That's important.
Remember, leases are personal property as they do not always run with the land. Meaning, when the property is sold, the lease does not always transfer with it. It is a contract with an individual person. As a way to remember the lease is just a piece of paper. Pieces of paper are movable. Therefore, a lease is personal property. Unless the lease forbids it, the tenant has the right to assign or sublet the property. What's the difference, you ask? Well, it's simple. An assignment is a transfer of contract rights, whereas a sublet is when you rent the property, you lease it to another person while still maintaining a responsibility to your landlord under the rent.
Okay, so it's important to know the difference between assigning a contract and a lease and subletting. So let's say I have a pizza shop and Vonnie wants to take it over. If I assign that lease to Vonnie, she is now 100% obligated. I am not. I'm out of the picture. Now, if I sublet it to her, I'm still on the hook to the landlord. Does that make sense? Okay.
Rental agreement. For example, if you sign your lease to Bob, you can move on with your life and Bob is now responsible to the landlord. If you sublet your lease to Bob, if the landlord does not get paid, you are responsible regardless of what Bob does or does not do. Constructive eviction is a term used in the law of real property to describe circumstances in which a landlord either does something or fails to do something that he has a legal duty to provide. An example would be if the landlord refuses to provide heat or water to the apartment, as a tenant cannot live without water, thus they need to vacate the premise. This would be constructive eviction. For more great information to get past your real estate exam, remember, go to prepagent.com.
Any questions on that? That constructive eviction is a little bit tricky, huh?
Constructive eviction. For more great information.
Let's see what else we got here we can look at. Let's look at types of leases.
There are different types of leases that come up on your exam. A gross lease is a rental agreement for the use of property where the tenant pays a fixed amount which does not change as a result of changes in the various expenses of the property. The landlord pays for these expenses, such as all repairs, taxes, and operating expenses incurred through ownership. It is the opposite of a net lease, in which these costs are incurred by the lessee. A net lease is where the responsibility to pay taxes, insurance, and maintenance are incurred by the lessee in addition to the monthly lease payment. This is often referred to as a triple net lease. A lease option is a rental agreement indicating a tenant's option to purchase a property during the term or at the end of the term of the lease. The owner of the property would be the optionor. The tenant would be the optionee. Consideration is given to the optionor in order to secure the option for the optionee. The consideration can be monthly payments consisting not only of rent, but in overage, or it can be money up front that can be applied towards a down payment on an already established amount. If the optionee exercises the option, title will revert back to the time the contract began, not when the option was exercised. A percentage lease is a rental that is based on a percentage of the monthly or annual gross sales made on the premise. Percentage leases are common with large retail stores, especially in shopping centers. An underlying concept of the percentage lease is that both the landlord and the tenant should share in the location advantages of the leased premise.
Here's a simple passive income business that allows you to be free. You probably don't know about it, but let me tell you what you do know about.
You can skip the ad.
Take a
On the corner.
Old school businesses like this one over here typically cost $50,000, $100,000 a month just to set up. Not to mention taxes, maintenance costs. Physical businesses are a headache. But you know what's better? Online billboards like this one. These range from 5 to 10.
Let's start with a valid contract. A valid contract is one that meets the basic elements of contract law. For example, you sign to buy a blue house, the house is blue, the contract is valid. Easy peasy. Next, let's discuss a voidable contract. So let's take that blue house. You signed to get a blue house, and you're very excited about your blue house. But when you show up, lo and behold, the house is a hideous color of green. Oh no. Now what do? Well, you have the option to rescind out of the contract because you agreed for a blue house. The house is now green. But this is not void. This is voidable because you may like that color green and maybe your thing. So you have the option to follow through with that contract. Contracts that have fraud or misrepresentation are also voidable. Also, contracts that are signed under duress. For example, if somebody's holding a gun to your head saying, sign this contract to buy this house, sign this contract, that contract is not void, it is voidable. Now you may be thinking, how is that not void? There's a gun to your head. Well, the fact is, even though there's a gun to your head, you may still want that house. So just because there's a gun to your head, should that take away your opportunity to buy the house? No. What the gun being held to your head does is it gives you the right to rescind. That is why that contract is voidable and not void. A contract that is void lacks one of the 4 essentials of a contract, which are mutual consent, lawful object, consideration, and capable parties. On your exam, they may ask you, what is the status of the contract if one of the parties is deemed mentally incompetent? Well, the answer there would be void because it would violate the essential element of capable parties.
Okay.
Parties. Till next time, good luck.
So those were 4 videos that I kind of grabbed that I thought related to this section that we're talking about as far as contracts go. So let's go. We got about 20 more minutes. Are these Zoom meetings helpful?
Yes.
To you guys? I would, yeah. We're starting now at the office to do some in-person training here. So for example, at our office on Mondays, we do a Zoom meeting every Monday, 10 a.m. And the whole group's involved. Usually we have over 20 people on it, and we just, talk about important subjects that are related to the whole office and to the real estate business. And then on Tuesdays, not every Tuesday of life, but we've been on a roll. On Tuesdays, we're doing a 10 o'clock Zoom meeting, and it's called How to Get Traction in Real Estate. And we are recording those Zoom meetings. We're also recording these here. And when you guys come on board, you'll be able to go, we'll have them hopefully up on YouTube, we're still work in progress, but we're on week 7, I think, will be next Tuesday. You'll be able to go on and watch some of those videos on how to get traction. Now, on our Tuesday training, since we have a smaller group, we've been bringing people actually in the office, and I've been doing a Zoom meeting, but in front of an audience. So yesterday we had 4 or 5 people, 6 people here. We were able to do it safely, and then we had 2 or 3 or 4 people that watched it on Zoom. Everybody has an opportunity to see it recorded after the fact. And we will send this out recorded too today. So if you want to rewatch it. And then on Wednesdays, and Shay caught me last week because I said 10 o'clock and it was 1 o'clock last week. She said, "Are you sure it's not 1 o'clock?" So on Wednesdays, I'm trying to stick with that 10 o'clock routine just so I can keep my head straight. We're doing these. So, I would love to be able to do something in person with you, but if you think you're getting what you need out of these Zoom training sessions, then we'll continue to do them on Zoom, and it makes it so much easier for everybody and safer for everybody involved. So let's see what else we can talk about here today.
Tom, do we have the option to come in?
Not right now.
Okay.
Not yet, Ange. Okay. Not right now. And you'll be licensed before that probably happens.
Okay.
Can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let me see.
There we go.
So let's talk about the listing process. Let me make it a little bigger so you guys can see it. Bam. Can you guys see that pretty good?
Yes.
Okay. It's always better, hey, listen, if you have to listen to it on your phone, you won't be able to see as well. It's better than nothing. But if you could do this on a laptop or a computer, you could see what I'm trying to throw out at you a little bit better. So the listing process, and listing a property is a twofold event. Number one is you have to use that PA consumer notice, and all required disclosures must be given before substantial issues are discussed. And we may have talked about this last week, but I don't think we did. Did we?
Yes.
Okay. And what disclosures would I be talking about here?
Consumer notice.
And what else?
Conflict.
Who said that?
Me.
Good job. Good job. Basic information required. You have to price the property. A lot of times we do a comparative market analysis, a CMA. You have to understand that a CMA is not an appraisal. A CMA is not done according to USPAP guidelines. A CMA must have in there that, and it says right here, this analysis has not been performed in accordance with the uniform standards of professional appraisal practices. That's USPAP for short. Okay, so a CMA is just a range of value that you're comparing some comps and giving that information to the seller. You have to do a seller's cost sheet. So the seller, so when we take a listing, we always do a seller's cost sheet so that the seller knows when we sign that listing agreement how much his net is going to be. He knows how much the brokerage fee is going to be and his other closing costs. The seller is required to disclose the property conditions on 1 to 4 family dwellings, all material defects. So we leave a seller disclosure with the seller to fill out to disclose those items. The licensee must advise the seller of a seller's duty to do that. So I was on an appointment yesterday. We talked to the seller. We gave him the seller disclosure. We had 8 pages. We asked him to fill it out. We review it after he gets back, make sure he didn't leave nothing out. But, you know, we told him, listen, every little problem, disclose it. Any major repairs that you had, disclose it. He says, well, I had termite damage under that window 10 years ago, and we completely took the wall out and fixed it. I said, disclose it. Keeps the seller out of trouble. And you have to have a signed and dated disclosure given to the buyer prior to signing of an agreement of sale. So what we do with the disclosure is we put it on the multiple listing service. So whatever agent sells the property, they could print that disclosure off, and then they could have their buyer sign it and give us that with the sales agreement, so that we know that the buyer has reviewed that seller disclosure statement. The form, I don't think this is real important stuff. They're pre-printed. I don't think there's going to be too much on the test on this. Let's talk about buyer agency agreements. Okay. So the buyer agency agreement, again, is an employment contract. So if I'm working with a buyer, I may ask that buyer to sign a buyer agency agreement, and that agreement binds that buyer to work exclusively with me if he buys a house, even if it's a for sale by owner, even if it's a co-broke. Binds that buyer to work with me. It's an employment contract. Buyer representation issues that need discussed. Any disclosures, if there would be any conflicts of interest. Maybe I'm selling that buyer my house, personal property, which we don't do at this office because it's such a big conflict of interest. Parties' rights and responsibilities. So we explain to that buyer, listen, man, you can't go looking at another house with another real estate agent. If you see something you like, you have to call me. We'll explain what services we're going to provide to that buyer. And the compensation. What compensation? If we find that buyer a property, how are we going to get compensated? See, a lot of times our agreement states in it that we will accept a minimum fee to represent that buyer. And we will also accept any fees the seller's willing to pay us to go towards it. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I have a buyer agency contract with a seller, with a buyer, and I tell that buyer in that contract that if a property is, and this language is in there just like this, if a property is listed with another broker and I sell him that, I would like paid 3.5%. I will accept any brokerage fee the seller is willing to pay to offset that. So if my buyer agent contract is 3.5% and I sell him a $100,000 house, that's $3,500. And the listing that he buys, that seller agreed to pay the selling broker 3%, then that buyer owes me 0.5%, $500 at closing. If that seller agreed to pay 2.5%, then he would owe me a whole 1% at closing. So the compensation has to be spelled out in the buyer agency agreement, and pricing of the property that they're going to buy. Now, there's a couple different types of buyer agency agreements, just like there is different listing agreements. Okay. There's an exclusive buyer agency, only one broker, and he gets repaid regardless who finds the property. That's the one we use. It's almost like the listing. right? There's an exclusive buyer agency and there's an exclusive right to sell on the listing side, right? Regardless who the broker, regardless who, only one broker, and he's paid regardless who finds the property. So if you have an exclusive buyer agency, if that buyer goes out and finds a property, it's for sale by owner, I still get paid. Then there's an exclusive agency, buyer agency only. One broker, and he's only paid if he finds the property. Isn't that kind of similar to the exclusive agency listing agreement? Same thing. And then there's a non-exclusive buyer agency where you could have many brokers, and the only broker that gets paid is the broker that finds the contract.
I have a
finds the
question.
house. Yes.
The exclusive agent buyer, the broker wouldn't get the fee, or the broker would get the fee?
No, buyer could find a property on the exclusive agent buyer agency. If the buyer found the property on his own, he don't pay a broker.
He does not. Okay.
No, it's just like the exclusive agency on the listing, where if the seller found the buyer, he didn't have to pay the broker. Okay. So you want to know these different types.
Okay.
You know, you gather the information, I don't think you need to know all the particulars in that. So that's page 18. Any questions? Any questions to that point right there?
No.
So I think we started on 7 to 18. Okay, let's wrap it up with just a couple questions, a couple and I'm going to share my screen with you here in a second. Bear with me, guys. Having a little bit of problem with my mouse. Froze up there. Let's see if we can try it one more time. Just bear with me. No, I lost it. I lost the questions. Does anybody have any questions for me? Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss? So we got pretty much through in these last two sections, chapter 18. Chapter 18. And if you look at the study guide, you know, there's a good many questions on the test on that chapter. So utilize that study guide to keep you on track. Now, if you get scheduled for the test, please reach out to me, let me know. We probably are going to do another study group next Wednesday. I'll send you an invite, 10 a.m. And then we're going to have a couple weeks off because of the Labor Day weekend holiday. And so we'll do next Wednesday at 10 a.m. I'll dig into the study guide and find another section that has a lot of questions on the test, and we'll go from there. And I hopefully these study groups are helpful to you. I enjoy doing them. I enjoy teaching this stuff. And as long as I have some participation, you know, I'll work with you. You know, the goal is to get you through this test. Don't wait too long. You know, get that test scheduled and go up there and take a crack at it. And if you miss it by a few questions, don't get stressed out over it. Some of the best agents we have in this office had to take that test a couple times to get through it. So I think taking it the first time is scary because you don't know what to do. But remember what I said, schedule the test day before, drive up to the testing center, clock how long it takes you to get there, get out of your car, go in the testing center, go up to the center, open the door, say, is this the testing center for the real estate exam? Yes, I'm scheduled to take it tomorrow. I just wanted to do a dry run, and you'll be okay. You can't take anything into the testing area. You can't take anything. So I think they give you a little bag to put your valuables, but you have to come in with like a photo ID. Is anybody taking the test? Is that all you need is a photo ID to take the test? I think so.
If I remember correctly, yes. I mean, you can't, they give you scratch paper, they give you a pencil, they provide that stuff for you.
They give you a calculator. You can't have your phone. So
Right.
basically, I think all you need is your photo ID, and you're golden. So, we get you through this. It's a phenomenal time in real estate. We're busy as heck. I have not seen a real estate market like this in Pennsylvania in 30 years. Houses are selling very quickly. They're selling for over asking price in some cases, multiple offers. So it's really a good time to get into the real estate business. And, right now with COVID, you can't do a lot. So it's perfect for you guys. Buckle down and study and get through this in this period. It's a good time to do this. And we're working, man. We're busy right now, believe it or not. We track how many written sales we have. And we were off 2 months. The government would not allow us to meet with people face to face. We still wrote 32 contracts in that period remotely. And year to date right now, even though we were now typically March and April, we're writing 150, 180 contracts here in this office. But year to date, as of Monday, we're 2 contracts ahead of last year. And that tells you something. There's not very many businesses that are year to date ahead of last year in the country.
Right.
Real estate is. So we've been blessed. That COVID hasn't affected us like some businesses. Restaurants are getting crushed. My wife works at a hair salon. She went in today at Snowball's Hair and Tanning. They're great with color, balayage, highlights, blondes, specialize in blondes. But they do all kind of stuff. But she went in today at 10 o'clock and is going to work till 8 o'clock tonight. And she only is able to take 5 customers because she's only allowed to take 1 customer at a time. Where typically before she would take somebody, put color on their hair, put them on, they would sit while the color processes. I get my hair colored every 2 weeks, by the way. I'm getting mine on Wednesday. I have a standing appointment 2:30. And while that color is processing, she takes another customer, like men's haircut or something. Vaughnie knows, Vaughnie goes there. And the place is always packed. Well, because of COVID, she only can take 5 customers today personally, where typically she would do 12, 14 in a 10-hour day. So real estate, we've been really blessed. There's a good market right now. You get focused on getting your license. We'll teach you just the same way we're helping you here make money in real estate. So everybody have a great day. We'll see you next week. We'll do next Wednesday, 10 a.m. We'll get now we had some problems with emails. Oh, you guys apparently got an email to the meeting, correct? Vaughnie,
Yes.
you didn't, or did you?
Not working on it. I just clicked on it.
Did you get an email for the invite?
No. Text.
I texted you that. And your email is what? Vaughnie, can you call me? Can I call you right after the meeting to make sure we're okay on that email? Okay, perfect. Okay, guys.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Tim.
You gave out some apps last week.
Some
and
what?
Apps, phone apps.
Yes.
Can I see them again?
Yes, there's 2 apps that work really well, and you guys are probably using them. Let me see if I can find them on my phone. And one is that little red house. See it right here?
Yes.
And it says real estate. And it's a little red house. That's for the national.
Okay.
The other one, the black one, says PA on it, and that's for the state portion.
Okay. Perfect. I see it.
Yeah. And Tim, these apps are nice because you could be doing something else, and you should have a goal. We're very goal oriented here.
Right.
You should have a goal that you're going to answer so many questions per day. And share that goal with somebody. See, the important thing with goals is to share them with somebody so that you're held accountable.
Right.
That's the key. That's the key. And you have another question, Tim?
Yes. What was it? It was about what to study. I forget what you said it was.
Study guide.
The study guide, yes. Can I get a copy of that?
You will get a copy sent to you from when they send you your transcripts. If not, I will email you a copy today.
Okay, could I get a copy today then, please?
I'm going to get a copy to you today.
Okay, because I want to get started on that.
Okay, so let me go back to this goal setting. You have to find somebody to hold you accountable. So remember I said we're doing Tuesday training, how to get traction in real estate?
Yes.
Well, part of the training is, and I only have about 6 people that have committed, and I broke them up into 2 teams. And each team is competing with the other team, and they're keeping each other accountable on how many phone calls they make a week. Just calling your friends, calling relatives, talking to people, asking, hey, do you know anybody that is considering a career in real estate? And because they're competing with another team, and the little group, there's only 3 in each group, are keeping each other accountable. Last week, one team made 28 calls, the other team 28 contacts. That's 28 people they talked to and said, hey, do you know anybody thinking of selling? The real estate market's on fire right now. If you do, please let me know, because they can make more money. So we made almost 50 calls. And I have my schedule too on calls that I want to make. And we write it down. Now, part of my calls is to pre-licensed recruits like you. And yesterday was a long day for me. I started at probably 9 o'clock, and it was about 7 o'clock, and I didn't make my calls. But I didn't want any of those guys say to me, Tom, did you make your calls? So I reached out to every one of you guys. Now, a text is just like a call in a way, because you're engaging with somebody. I reached out to every one of you guys last night, 20 texts I sent out. And I had 8 people that engaged back and forth with me. See, because I didn't want my group to say, Tom, did you make your calls? Now, there's another goal I have. Because I'm old and out of shape, I have a goal to walk 6:30 in the morning. And I shared that goal with them. So now, me and my wife did walk on Sunday, but then I didn't walk Monday or Tuesday. And I shared with the group, and I said, hey, listen, because we had that Tuesday training session. I said, you guys got to keep me accountable. So look what I did this morning. Now, don't pay attention to me, because, I look kind of pretty right now, but I don't look pretty at 6 o'clock in the morning with no makeup. So let's see if you can hear this. Wednesday morning, August 19th, because we had that Tuesday training session yesterday, and I shared with you guys, one of my goals was to walk 6:30 in the morning. I'm out here walking. That's what accountability does. It pushes you. I did not want to get out of bed this morning, but I did because I told people I was going to do something, and I didn't want to let them down. It's easy to let yourself down. Have a great day. Be accountable to your goals. So see what those goals did for me? It pushed me this morning at 6:30 to get out and do it. So share your goals. Have a goal that you're going to study for 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, or you're going to answer 10 questions a day or 20 questions a day. Share it with somebody that's important in your life and ask them to keep you accountable. It's the key to success in life. It really is. It really is. So when you come here, man, this ain't just about real estate. This is a life experience. And it's probably why 95%, there's only 2 agents out of 44 that didn't start here. Everybody else did. And I have agents that have been with me 30 years because it's a life experience here. Not only do we teach you about real estate, we teach you that to have a better life for yourself, you know, because of goal setting and so forth. So everybody have a great day. I will catch you later. One of the flexibilities about real estate, 12 o'clock, I'm cutting out. The afternoon's dedicated to my mother, 85 years old. I'm going to take her to the doctor's office. I'm going to go get my hair colored. Me and her will go, and then I'm going to take her to Walmart to go shopping. See, and that's one of the beauties of real estate that I really like. I integrate my personal with my business, and it's not like a job. It's just a way of living. Vaughnie will tell you. Vaughnie gets her hair done at my wife's salon. Just about every time Vaughnie's there, I pop in and give my wife a kiss. Now, she talks crap on me when I leave. And I know that because people have told me. But that doesn't stop me from stopping in. So you guys have a great day. Stay after it. Let's get through this phase. This phase right here is just passing the state exam. Okay? And be strong. If you have any questions, Vaughnie, I want to call you, make sure we're okay with email right after the meeting. Okay, buds? Everybody, have a great day.
Thank you.
Tom.
Perfect.
Thank you.